Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe that I'd like to share with you, and it's called Bean Roux Vegetable Dish. RÁNTÁSOS BAB FÖZELÉK. All you will need for this recipe is 450 grams of red kidney beans, 5 to 6 cloves of garlic, half a medium onion, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of Vegeta or vegetable base, and you can get Vegeta MSG free Vegeta also if you would like to use that spice without the MSG. 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. Now for the roux mixture, the thickening agent, you need 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, 5 tablespoons of flour, 1 tablespoon of sweet Hungarian paprika. And if you can't get Hungarian sweet paprika, you can use any other types of paprika that's available in your area. So, and then also you would need 3/4 cups of water to go with that roux mixture. And if you wanted to add smoked sausage to this recipe, you could use Hungarian smoked sausage or any type of smoked sausage that you can get at your local deli. So what I did in a colander is I rinsed the kidney beans with cold water, and then I placed the kidney beans in a medium-sized bowl, and then I poured enough lukewarm water to cover the kidney beans, and then I soaked them overnight. So this is the next day, and so in the next day in a colander I drained off the water, and I put the kidney beans in a large pot. So I'd just like to show you what the kidney beans look like. So they do expand while they are soaking in the water, lukewarm water, overnight. So this is what they look like today. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour over some water to cover the beans, because I'm going to be cooking them until they're soft. So I've got about 4 cups of water here, and so you shouldn't have more than, I'm just going to add a little bit more here on the top to cover about 1 inch top of the beans. So you should have water, like that much water covering the kidney beans. And then what I did was I diced some onions and garlic, and I'm going to add it to the kidney beans into the water. And then I've got some garlic, diced garlic, and I'm just going to stir this together. Okay, and then I'm going to add my spices. My salt, 1 tablespoon of salt, and I'm using sea salt today. And the Vegeta, the MSG free Vegeta for flavoring. I'm just going to add that to those ingredients. And then I've got my 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper added to this recipe. Then I'm just going to stir this around. Then I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to cook it until the beans are soft. And then I'm going to put a lid on it, on the pot. And I'm going to make sure that there's a little bit of a space here, so that there's a bit of air coming into there. So you're not going to cover it tightly. You're going to make sure that it's loosely covering the pot. So I'm going to take that over to the stove. I've already got the stove ready to go, and I'm going to cook that until the beans are soft. So I'm going to check that in about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to make sure that the beans are cooked before adding the roux mixture. So what I'll do is I'll come back and I will show you how to prepare the roux thickening agent mixture for this recipe. Welcome back again to Rinka's Kitchen. I have on the stove some beans that have been cooked with the garlic and onions and all the spices and seasonings that I've used in it. So the beans are ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off the burner. And I'm going to be adding the roux, and I'm just going to show you what the roux looks like. And so what I've done is I've melted 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening in a frying pan, and then I mixed flour, and I browned the flour into the melted vegetable shortening, and then I added the paprika, but I took the frying pan off the burner, and then I added the paprika because I didn't want the paprika to burn. So I mixed that up, and so this is what the thickening agent, it's called ROUX, RÁNTÁSOS, and I'm going to be adding that to the beans that have been cooked. Now sometimes when you buy dried kidney beans, you have to cook them for a couple hours, because depending on the freshness of your kidney beans, so you have to cook them at a longer period of time before they soften. So and make sure that you overnight that you soak them for at least 10 to 12 hours in water, in lukewarm water, and before you actually soak them in the water, before you actually cook the beans, you have to rinse them off and then pour the warm water over them, and then let them soak for about 12 hours. But sometimes you have to cook them for a longer period of time, because the kidney beans may not be as fresh as you expected. Sometimes when they're in a package, they may not be as fresh as you'd like them to be. So I had to cook these ones, the red kidney beans, a little bit longer than my other recipe where I did the roux bean soup. So just keep that in mind when you are cooking this recipe, that you may have to cook it for a longer period of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the roux, the RÁNTÁSOS, and I'm going to put it into the bean soup, and I'm going to stir it together, and then I'm going to put it back on the burner and bring it to a quick boil, and then it should be ready to serve with your favorite meat dish. You can add Hungarian smoked sausage to the garlic and the onions and the red kidney beans before you start cooking them up. So you would dice up some smoked sausage and put that in there and let that cook in the beans. It gives it a great flavor. But if you prefer it to be kind of more like a vegetarian type of a dish, then you can leave the meat out of it. And it's great served with rye bread also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to the stove, and I'm going to add it to the beans that have been cooked. And this is the RÁNTÁSOS that I showed you. Put all that in there, and what this does is that it thickens this vegetable dish. It's called főzelék. So I'm just going to mix that in there, and then I'm going to cook it a little bit, bring it to a boil, and what it should do is it should thicken it. So I've got about 5 tablespoons of flour there. So I'm going to put it back on the burner, and I've got it at a low to medium heat at first, and I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then it should be ready to serve with your favorite meat dish. Just going to just stir it around just a little bit more. It's already starting to look thick, and it thickens as it stands in the roux, in that thickening agent. It sort of thickens. And then you can serve it with favorite meat dish or with rye bread. So what I'll do is I'll Bring that to a quick boil, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you what this great recipe looks like in a serving dish. And usually this recipe is served in a sort of like a soup bowl, because it is kind of a bit runny. And you can, like I say, add your smoked sausage to it when you're adding the garlic and the onions to the red kidney beans when you're cooking them up. So I'll be back to show you what this great recipe looks like. Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I had on the stove some beans cooking with garlic and onions, and I put all the spices in it. And then I added the roux, the thickening agent, the RÁNTÁS. And what I'd like to do is show you what this great recipe looks like in a serving dish and in a serving bowl. So I've kind of poured this into a serving dish. So if you were serving it to guests, you'd put it into one of these serving dishes. And as you can see, it's nice and thick, and the beans and the garlic and onions, it just smells fantastic. Now you can add smoked sausage to this if you wanted to put a meat inside of this. Smoked sausage goes great with this. As you're cooking the beans, you can add the Hungarian smoked sausage to it. And of course, in a serving bowl, so you'd serve it in sort of like a soup bowl like this. And then of course you can serve it with rye bread. So I'm going to be serving that with some rye bread, dark rye bread. And it goes great with that. And you can put some butter on the rye bread and just serve it like that. Simple like that. And so it just looks great. So it's nice and thick. So when you are cooking the beans, you might have to cook them for a longer period of time. You may need to add more water as the beans are cooking. You may need to add a little bit more water to it because the water evaporates. So you may need to add an extra bit of water into it, but that doesn't change the taste of the roux bean vegetable dish. So that's just a tip that I'd like to suggest to you if you need to be cooking the beans further. So I hope that you enjoy cooking this great dish that my grandmother and mother served to us. And if you have any questions or comments regarding this recipe, please feel free to contact me at irene@arinkaskitchen.com or arinkaskitchen.com. Until next time, bon appetit, jo eet vadat.